Hello again. I'm with Meaghan McKenna for another member mission present, this time telling us about the conference she went to. We heard last month about the conference she was going to go to. Now she's come back. Tell us again the title of it.
The theme for this year's conference was Christianity in the East, Islam in the West, Prophetic Voices from Palestine and Israel.
And the purpose of it.
It was a peace building and conflict resolution seminar, and it was really important for the conference leaders to give us an awareness and an understanding of the situation, and then they really left it up to us to decide what to do from there, if we wanted to do anything once we returned.
And the sponsors were?
Who sponsored me?
Sabeel.
Oh, the organization.
Yes.
Yep, it was called the Sabeel Center, and it's a Ecumenical Liberation Theology Center.
Mm-hmm. So I imagine then that it perhaps sees its role as championing the Palestinians, not to go overboard, but simply to see that their side gets understood. Would that be right?
Mm-hmm. And their main goal is to try and end the occupation as well.
Okay.
So.
Good and clear. And then I guess, if I'm thinking right, that the idea was that you be on the scene, see what's actually going on, and that'll give you the best basis for playing a role in any kind of settlement, any freedom of occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember too, among the various churches groups that came up with money for your trip, one of them was all of the churches in Shelburne, Heinsberg, and Charlotte.
Right, the SHIP organization.
Yeah, I think that's great to have
that
that
great
broad
to have
backing.
That kind of support right in my own community.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
You shared so many rich things as I've listened to you. For our viewers here, you talked about the housing disparities. Could you, those were broad categories, powerful, so could you review them?
Sure. For me, especially when I first entered the country, one of the main differences that I noticed was between the Israeli section of town and of Jerusalem and the Palestinian sector, because the Israeli sector of town is very, very well organized, very systematic. They have running water, electricity. They have regular access to garbage pickup and disposal and a regular mail system, things like that. Very nicely paved roads and lots of greenery around. And then the moment you cross into the Palestinian quarter, that all changes. The buildings are almost in shambles. They're falling apart. The roads are not well kept. They don't have a regular mail system. They have to go to a post office and get their mail because the houses aren't numbered. They don't have garbage pickup, so most people end up either burning their garbage, or it ends up in piles just outside. And they don't have regular access to water. One of our leaders always told us that you could tell if the house was Palestinian or Israeli by the black water containers on the top of the roofs, because Palestinian homes they only have 2 or 3 hours access to water a day, so the rest of the time they rely on rainwater, which is also very sparse there, but the barrels on the roof collect rainwater, so they rely heavily on that. So.
Very, very graphic details.
It is. Yeah.
And I might tell our viewers that there's a certain authority you speak with because you will be one of 4 leaders for next year's conference.
Yeah, I am going to be.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I have to figure out, the financing, and I'm not sure how that aspect of it works, but if I can, then I'll be over there in a heartbeat. So.
Wonderful. There were, I'm sure, 2 or 3 experiences you might have had that you can recall that really came across to you the extent of the suffering of the Palestinians.
Well, the first one that I'd like to share would be about the housing demolitions that are occurring daily. because that for me was just a great eye-opener in terms of the daily suffering and the daily fear that the Palestinians experience. In Palestine and Israel, you have to have a housing permit in order to build a house, and Palestinians are not awarded the permits, and if they are, it's not until 20 or 25 years after they've put in for the permit. So most of the time, they don't have any other choice but to build illegally, build a home illegally. So once the Israeli government finds out about that, then they go through a process called the demolition order, and that can mean that they can come the next day and demolish the house. Could be a week, could be 5 years, could be never. But it's just another mechanism of ensuring that the Palestinian people are constantly living in fear, just wondering, is my house going to be taken today or tomorrow? You know? And hearing different accounts of families who have had to go through that, not just once, which is heart-wrenching enough, but multiple times. That was really hard for me to hear.
As I recall, at one point you were showing the territories that are Israeli held and Palestinian directed.
Mm-hmm.
Something like only 9% of the West Bank is controlled by Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
And the huge rest of it, where the rest of it, some huge percent, is really controlled by Israel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually 8.3% of the total landmass that still belongs to Palestinians, so that includes Gaza as well. But obviously they used to control the whole country, so it's quite a disparity now. And then even within the West Bank, I'm not sure the actual number for percentages there, but the land is divided into 3 areas. Area A is controlled entirely by the Palestinian Authority. Area B they share, and Area C is controlled by the Israelis. And Area A is by far the smallest. It only amounts to maybe 2 or 3% of the West Bank. So it's a tiny, tiny portion that the Palestinians they're under control of.
This I have missed, surely, that what we think of as the Palestinians' land, the West Bank, is really controlled by Israel.
Right. Yeah, that's why they, over there, they really call it the occupied Palestinian territories.
Mm-hmm.
So just to reinforce that, technically the West Bank and Gaza belongs to the Palestinians, but it's really not under their control. So
we're taking a good amount of time, but I think it's all essential. So let's keep going.
Okay.
I gave you time to share just one experience, maybe another one.
Sure. Let's see. I think the checkpoint experiences, that was another difficult experience for me. Our group had the opportunity to go through a checkpoint as a Palestinian would. As internationals, we can just take our buses and just go through the checkpoint, much like an Israeli could. But Palestinians have to go through on foot, and they have to go through very tiny little channels that have, they have almost like jail cell walls along both sides. So it's a very, very confined area, and like hundreds of people going through at one time. And so it's almost like they're being corralled as animals would. And sometimes it took us as internationals an hour and a half to get through the Palestinian checkpoint. There's like probably 8 to 10 different stations within a checkpoint. And sometimes it can take all day for a Palestinian. It could take 4 hours, or, it could take 2, something like that. And a lot of Palestinians, especially the children, a lot of their schools are on the other side of the checkpoints. So they have to cross early in the morning just to get to school on time. And the same thing for adults who work on the other side as well. So.
And if a child has chemotherapy or something that
right,
has to go by him or herself?
Right, because in order to cross the checkpoint, you have to have a permit to do so. And permits are not often awarded to Palestinians, especially if they're not Israeli passport holders. And so if a child has to go across for, chemotherapy or has a serious medical condition, often their parent is not awarded a permit as well. So they have to go by themselves. So now within the area, they've developed these organizations that accompany them. So
I'd love to go on more. We do have to watch the time that YouTube gives us. As I recall, you're in graduate studies right now in Cairo
I am.
for a degree in international refugee law.
International human rights law.
Yeah. And if I got it too, the Palestinians who've been displaced are not refugees subject to the protections of international law as refugees. They are displaced.
Internally displaced persons.
And so they have a lesser
So,
category for rights and the
right.
like.
Right. It's a difficult situation with them, so.
Meaghan, you're looking ahead. You're hoping to do something about refugee rights. Say something about what you hope to do and how you feel about it.
I think for me, as I was given the awareness, I think it's very important for people to just be aware of what's going on. So what I see to do now that I've been back is to keep talking to people and just letting them know what's going on from an internal perspective. So that's what I've been working on, is giving various presentations and talks like that. So.
And once you have your degree, do you see what do you see yourself doing? Maybe.
I'm not sure 100%. Ideally, I think I'd like to work in the United Nations in advocacy or supporting the rights of refugees, but haven't decided that yet, so we'll see.
Well, lots of days ahead and years ahead to make that decision. So appreciate your articulate telling of what goes on there. Thanks so much, Meaghan.
You're welcome. Thank you.